Hey everyone, welcome to episode 8 of the Generation GC podcast. Before we get into things, I wanted to say thank you again to everyone who has continued to support the show and reach out on social media. I started this podcast because Good Charlotte has been my favorite band for a really long time, and I can't express enough how much I really love connecting with people on the internet, getting to talk to people from all over the world about this band. It's so much fun. I'm loving getting to see people from all walks of life and from so many different countries connecting with Generation GC. Right now, the show is on Anchor, Spotify, Apple, Google Play. I've also been putting it on YouTube. You can also find it on any podcast app that scans from Apple, so for example, Overcast. This should reach a lot of people in lots of different countries, but if you have any suggestions of other places you might want to hear Generation GC or that people might be looking for podcasts, let me know and I'll see what I can do. If you will be interested in a transcript of the show, also hit me up and I'll see what I can do about that. I really want to make sure this is accessible to as many people as possible. If you like the show and you want to support it, you can donate on Anchor. You absolutely do not have to do this, but if you do choose to support the show, this will help me sustain all future episodes and ensure that they are the best that they can be. It helps me make sure I have the right software, like the right Zoom membership, helps me make sure I have the right, things like microphones, headphones, etc. And it also helps me do things like print Generation GC stickers. I'll be sending one of those out to everyone who is supporting the show, so send me a DM with a screenshot of your support as well as your mailing address so I can send you some stickers. If you're not a supporter of the show on Anchor but you want a sticker, let me know. Maybe we can work something out so I can still ship you some stickers and figure out how to cover the costs. As you know, of course, things like printing, production, and shipping for non-essential goods, such as stickers, tend to be taking a little longer right now. So I am waiting for the stickers to arrive in my apartment, but hopefully it'll be really soon. I cannot wait. I'm super excited. They're going to be holographic, sparkly. I think they're going to look really cool. Once I build up the supporters a little bit and get to 10 people who are supporting the show with a $4.99 or more donation every month, I'm going to start doing monthly donations to charities. I think it's really important to give back, and there's a lot of people, organizations that could really use it right now. It'll be pretty small to start, but, I think if you can give a little, you should. Let me know what causes you guys would want to help support, any organizations that could use help. Maybe particularly a really small organization or something local to you. Thank you guys for sticking with me and listening to the show. Please share it on social media, subscribe on your favorite podcast provider, rate, review, leave comments, and share it with a friend who loves Good Charlotte. Thanks for tuning in, and on to episode 8, Shadowboxer with Emily Berke. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 8 of the Generation GC podcast. We are talking about Shadowboxer today with Emily Berke from Waldman Management. Emily, hello.
Hi, Molly. I'm so excited to be on here and to be making my case for Shadowboxer. I feel like I put it that way.
I am so excited. So Shadowboxer is track 3 on Good Charlotte's 7th studio album, Generation RX. It was the second single to be released from the album on July 13th, 2018, which was about 2 months before the album came out that September. The album was released on Madden /BMG, which was their return to a major record label after Youth Authority had been released independently. All right, Emily, so I reached out to you about this podcast. You were super excited, and you mentioned this song, Shadowboxer, immediately as something that you wanted to talk about. Why did you want to talk?
I think I made this my number one pick.
And I think you did, yeah. You had like a couple, but I was like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah, I'm glad I got my number one pick, so I'm very happy. And here's why I'm so almost adamant that I had to do Shadowboxer.
Yeah.
So I loved Good Charlotte as a teen. Yes. I'm sure a lot of people relate. And then as I got older and like they started putting out other albums, I kind of like fell off the wagon and hadn't really been paying attention.
Which I think is common.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do as they like grow up and maybe they don't relate or they forget about a band or something like that. But I still listen to all their old stuff, never really kept up with the new. And that goes with like Youth Authority and all of that as well.
Sure, yeah.
And then when Generation RX came out, I had seen a lot of promo for it, maybe because at this point I was like kind of been in the music industry for a while.
Sure, so you like pay attention to things more?
Yeah, like I see a lot of people within the industry talking about like this album, Generation RX, and the look of it and how like Almost Good Charlotte took a different direction. But in my mind, like I still like I didn't have high hopes. I'm like, oh, I don't know.
Right.
I'm older now. I don't know if I'm gonna like it. So I took a listen.
Older. Side note, Emily, how old are you?
I'm 22.
Oh my God.
So
Stop.
Still young, but like
oh my God. When I was 22, they were on hiatus.
Oh.
Yeah, it was rough. It was rough.
Dark time.
Go on. Yeah.
But like, yeah, Generation RX. I'll be honest, the complete album didn't really do much for me, but Shadowboxer in particular, I really, really loved and really connected to. That it kind of like redeemed the whole rest of the album for me.
Okay. So what made you, like, after a couple of years of not following them so closely, like what made you check them out again?
I think just the amount that I was seeing it. Everyone was starting to talk about Good Charlotte again. You know, they toured for Youth Authority. They toured for Generation RX. They were just a big thing again. And obviously they're always in the news because the twins are both married to pretty famous women.
They were in the news not just because of their wives and because they are, you know, tabloid figures, whatever. I think at this point they were largely in the news because they were a band again, I think.
Yes. So I think it was just like I kept seeing their name everywhere and figured, you know what? The hype is there for a reason.
Yeah. I'm
going to check it out. Let's do it.
Yeah. So we'll dive a lot more into what the song means or our interpretations and maybe how we relate to it. But one thing I wanted to bring up was I actually looked up what is a shadowboxer? Like, what does that mean? So dictionary.com defines shadowbox as a verb. Two definitions. The first one, to make the motions of attack and defense, as in boxing as a training or conditioning procedure, or to evade or avoid direct or decisive action. Urban Dictionary had several definitions. They said when a person punches in motion at nothing in particular, preparing for a fight or physical fitness. There's also a slang definition as the act of being evasive, vague, or non-forthcoming with information. So, Emily, what's your thoughts of like how they're meaning what is a shadowboxer in relation to this song?
I wouldn't go with the first definition of fighting thin air. I never really relate to that because in my mind, I'm getting the picture of like the weird guy wearing the tank top on the street doing karate and his like wife is yelling at him. Yeah. So I'm going with that's not it. But the second like dictionary.com definition that you gave, the to evade or avoid direct or decisive action. I think I relate to the song more with that than anything. Okay. Just because like it's specifically, and I know we're probably going to get into the lyrics a little bit later, but I feel like it's good to bring up. They have lines in the songs, all the pain you cause, it's your own suffering. Yeah. There's a lot of in the song about like the decisions that you make are why you are the way that you are, or why you do certain things. Like everything goes down to like you're making your own decisions. You can't blame anyone else. Yeah. Well, continue.
So here's my thing is my first reading of these definitions of what is a shadow boxer was that it's that being evasive and avoiding direct action. But as I was kind of reading not just the lyrics, but reading what they had said in interviews about it and everything, the idea of, and that maybe this is getting very symbolic, but the idea of attacking thin air, of not fighting anyone. I mean, in a way, I feel like this song kind of talks about having all this hatred and maybe fighting yourself. So I can kind of see that side of the definition too. So I think it kind of, I don't know, I argue that definition works too, because the song is about fighting no one but yourself, I think.
Yeah, no, I see it that way. And I know in interviews that they had mentioned, like, this is a lot about, searching into yourself and really just diving in and, like, do you like who you are and all that as well. And that's, like, a large theme when it comes to this song too, which the song is very angry. And I think that's also what drove me to it, is that it was a lot darker, it was a lot harsher than
Youth Authority was a very, like, pop record.
Yeah, it was. They were a pop band for Youth Authority. And then for this, they're like, you know what? Let's go dark.
Yeah.
They're going to be dark. It's going to be rock. And we're a rock band.
Yeah.
And it was very different than, like, The Good Charlotte that we all kind of got into when we were younger. Everyone listened to the anthem and saw the crazy music videos.
I was listening to Chronicles of Life and Death the other day as I was, getting ready to talk about it. And that record has a lot of, like, really dark kind of stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
And I this album, if we're going to compare this to past releases, it feels the most similar to Chronicles of Life and Death, especially because of all the strings they use.
Yeah. I definitely see that too. I would just relate to it in, like, the darker themes and the anger of it. Which, if you're an OG Good Charlotte fan, I don't know if you would ever describe the band as angry.
Oh yeah. Oh, completely. And the way they express that anger totally changes over time. But there's totally some anger. I mean, all of the Young and the Hopeless is like, I'm angry at the world, Yeah.
It's like angst, though, almost the teen angst of, I don't know, like, no one understands. And then I feel like with Shadowboxer, it's just like, do I understand?
Yeah. So let's talk about the lyrics and what the song means. I read over the lyrics. The song is pretty deep. It's pretty introspective. Joel is basically diving into how the things that other people say, as well as how the things that he says to himself, how that's affected him and how that's affected how he sees himself and how he interacts in the world. I have a quote from Rock Sound where he says, "That song was one of the first songs we wrote for the record. Generation RX has been a really kind of raw album facing our own emotional experience in the world. And I think Shadowboxer was really questioning self-esteem and looking in the mirror and really asking yourself, what do you say to yourself when you look in the mirror?" So that I mean, I guess that pretty much says, even before I read this interview, that was my interpretation of this. How does the way you see yourself affect yourself, and how does that affect how you see the world? I mean, what is your interpretation of the lyrics?
Yeah, mine is definitely different. And I mean,
okay, yeah, I want to hear it.
He wrote the words and it was his interpretation. It's what he was feeling. So I'm not going to take away from that, because the songwriter's obviously not wrong. I think he knows what he was doing.
Yeah.
But, like, music is subjective, and, that's how you know what good art is that people feel different things or see different things if you're looking at a painting. And so I kind of see it as more like almost like regretful, the lyrics. Like, they regret not doing something, or they regret taking this certain path and having to live with that almost.
Okay.
And they do use the word, like, shameful and all that, like, live with it, suffer, that kind of thing. Get very technical. But I see it as, like, more of a regret. And going back to the definitions that we talked about, to, like, avoid making a decisive action or a decision.
Like
and all
that you regret not making a decisive action.
Yeah, or just regret the steps that you took or not doing something. And there's my freshman year of college, my dad gave me like the best piece of advice, and it's so simple and sounds so redundant, but I've lived my life this way ever since.
Okay.
And he basically just told me, if you do nothing, nothing will happen.
I mean, that's great, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I kind of see that in the lyrics of, or even the definition of Shadowboxer, not being able to make a decision, not moving, just kind of gliding by. And so when I listen to the song, it's more like an anger and regret.
Like, do you think that's an anger at yourself, or is it like an anger at the world? Is it like an anger at someone else?
An anger at yourself. I think all of this is internal. And I think it also kind of speaks to how, you know, the band has grown up from looking at like The Young and the Hopeless and, you know, the self-titled album of the angsty, like, no one understands me, the world doesn't get it, I'm just going to do what I want to do, to going to Generation RX, their latest album, and being like, yeah, this is all on me. I need to take a good look at myself.
Yeah.
And what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think, and that was something I had noted about this too, this song and this record as a whole, but, you know, their earlier records were definitely coming from a place of a lot of anger, a lot of pain, you know, from their father, and songs like Motivation, Proclamation, just being pretty depressed and a lot of not fitting in or feeling like they had a place in the world. And there was a lot of pain and a lot of anger, I think, on the first record, even though it was like a fun pop punk record, right? But with this record, and especially with this song, it feels to me very much like, you know, they're not talking about, okay, this thing happened to me and I'm pissed off about it. You know, it's I am upset with myself.
Yeah. It's just kind of showing the growth, and it's obviously for a different generation too, because their audience really did grow up with them, and I think they're a band that did that very, very well, even though I'm saying that as someone who fell off the train for a little bit. But
so how old were you when you first discovered them? Like, what was your first introduction to Good Charlotte?
The first memory I really have is I had to be less than 10 because I am young. So very early 2000s, and they used to play the Girls and Boys music video all the time on probably like VH1 or MTV or one of those things that I shouldn't have been watching.
Yeah, right.
So I remember that music video so vividly in my head, and I'm like, oh, this is fun. It's like cool, and like he had the spiky hair.
Yep. You are not the first person to mention that the spiky hair intrigues them.
Yeah, because you see that and you're like 8 or 9 years old, and you're like, oh,
whoa, that's so cool.
Yeah, like that's rocks. I've never seen a guy like that before. Like, it's so cool.
Yeah, like I didn't have, I had heard of punk, but like I had never seen it for myself.
Yeah, like I never thought of punk. Like in my mind, punk was like Disney Channel punk.
Yeah.
You just wear like black and the gloves and everything, but it's like, oh, this is extreme. Like they're doing it.
Yeah.
And so there's obviously that introduction. I think it was Joel Madden used to date, what was it?
Hilary Duff.
Hilary Duff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hate that was an introduction, but you know what? It brought me to Good Charlotte, and it stuck with me. And now we're here.
No, now we're here, and now we're talking about what this song means and what we think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say I've seen a conversation. I'll get personal here for a minute, and if you would like to share anything, you're welcome to, but you totally don't have to. I will get personal here and say that I have probably, it was like, you know, especially as we talk about self-confidence, probably around the time I was graduating college, I was just for the first time kind of starting to think a lot more about taking care of myself. And yeah, that was like exercising and eating well, but it was thinking about the way I thought about myself, right? And the things that I said to myself and the things that I felt about myself. And it's such a journey, and it's like a constant thing, because I feel like it's so easy to say that self-confidence or like being sure of yourself is just natural, but I totally don't think it is. Like,
no, I agree with you there.
It totally is. Like, I have to remind myself every single time. You know, I have to remind myself every single time I'm writing in my journal or sitting down to write poetry or on the phone with a friend or something. I'm over the past few years, I've really started to just think about, okay, what am I saying, and how has that affected how I see myself and how I interact with others? Because I know that when I've been in those times where I like hate myself, like if I am not feeling good about myself, I am not going to be pleasant to be around. I'm just going to be disagreeable. I'm going to be angry. I'm probably going to be kind of mean to people.
Yeah, so it changes everything.
Yeah. And that's something, that's why I've like really taken to this song a lot, that I was like, wow, for the first time I felt like they were kind of opening up about this kind of aspect.
Yeah. And just, you know, looking at yourself and looking in the mirror, and are you happy with yourself and all of that too. And I appreciate you getting personal, because I think it is something that a lot of us do really, like, I'm not going to say suffer with, because it's something that we just all kind of live with. And something that like we kind of take a step back sometimes and think, you know what, like, what am I saying to myself, and how is it affecting literally the rest of my life and all of my decisions and how I interact with other people. Mm-hmm. And especially like relationship wise, and because if you are unhappy with yourself, it's going to show in any of your relationships.
Completely. And, you know, I do feel like there's been opening up a conversation in our society about self-care and self-confidence, but I don't know if people like super totally grasp that it's not just like you make a decision that I like myself now and I'm going to just like be happy with myself 24/7 and that's just going to be how it is. Like, no, you got to constantly be working on it, you know? And it like the fact that I'm constantly thinking about it and working on it doesn't mean it's not genuine. It just means that that's, I think, where it's coming from. And the fact that, no, I'm not perfect. And of course there's things that like maybe I would change, but like, doesn't mean that I don't need to take good care of myself. Right.
Yeah. And I think a lot of what people get wrong about the whole self-care thing too is a lot of people see it as just physical care, where it's like, I'm going to do a face mask, I'm going to take a bath, I'm going to shower, I'm going to get my hair cut, that kind of thing. And then they completely miss the whole, like, well, have you like sat with yourself for a while and like noticed any patterns in your decision making or just in your life that like are a little destructive, and why are you doing that, and getting down to the root of the problem. And that in itself is self-care, just kind of like checking in with yourself mentally and of course physically too. But you really need to get deep down and be like, why am I doing this? What am I doing? Or why is this making me unhappy? Like, let's check this out.
And from the physical aspect too, I think it's beyond, you know, oh, I'm going to do a face mask. It's, oh, I haven't showered in a couple of days because I've been depressed and haven't been going out.
Yes.
Honestly, probably, yes, I've been showering every day during this pandemic. Frankly, a lot of people probably are not. And it's not just... yeah, and that's fair. Like, but I think it's things like showering regularly. Maybe I shouldn't even say shower every day, but showering regularly. And eating well. And moving your body.
Just eating in general.
Yeah, eating in general. Eating in general, because I don't know, what's funny is, so like I've been working at home Emily, you and I were talking about how we've both been working from home before we started the actual episode. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people, supposedly, a lot of people, when they work from home, they will like snack all day. But my thing is, when I eat from home, I like need to set reminders for myself to take lunch, to have a snack if I'm like dying and don't feel like I have time for a full meal. But like you do feel better. I think for me, the self-care in that aspect of like, okay, I'm going to eat like a decent meal. And then after work, I'm going to journal and I'm going to go for a walk and I'm going to do yoga. And all those things are going to help not just my body, but my mind. That doing that self-care, I think really helped me be nicer to myself.
Yeah. Yeah, because you show yourself taking care of yourself, and it kind of throws into this is something that is precious and good. And if you're throwing good things at something, you're going to correlate in your mind like, this is good. I'm good. I deserve good things.
Exactly. And I think like being self-conscious is supernatural, and I don't think there's like anyone out there that's not self-conscious, but you know, the way you talk to yourself, I think, is super important. So I want to talk about the music video for this song. So the music video was released in the summer before the album came out. It was directed by Jake Stark. The band performs in an abandoned mansion. People are looking in the mirror and you see their faces kind of flash to skulls. And there's this big contrast between what you see around them in the mirror and then what's around them kind of in real life. And something that I found really interesting and that totally relates to this song is that Joel had told The Independent that he actually hates making videos because he's self-conscious.
I think what I really liked about the music video, and it really relates to the conversation we just had and your mention of, you know, everyone feels self-conscious, it's natural, is in the music video, the people looking in the mirror are very normal people. Like one of them is older woman, someone's like a businesswoman in a suit, just like your average normal looking like neighborhood people.
Yes.
Nothing particularly special about any of the actors featured.
Which I feel like was intentional because they want to say that like everyone feels this way.
Yeah, it's universal, and it could be the most normal looking person. And although you feel isolated in what you're feeling, just know that your next door neighbor probably feels the exact same thing sometimes.
Yeah, and so I interviewed Billy a few days before this album was released, and I asked him about this video and how they have that, you know, skull imagery where everyone's faces kind of flash to skulls. And he said that that was our way of saying that everyone has that dark inside of you that's there and that you struggle with. The outside of you might be happy, but on the inside, you don't necessarily see the demons. Mm-hmm. And I love that because it's, you know, exactly what you and I have been saying, that it's something everyone deals with. It's so universal. It's not limited to a gender or age or type of person in any way.
Yeah, I think, and they really like hit it spot on in terms of the imagery and the essence of what they're doing, because also the band themselves are dressed very normal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They didn't do anything special outfit wise, hair, makeup wise. Yeah. They're kind of dressed in normal clothes, singing in an abandoned mansion, as one does.
Well, no, it's funny because, like, you know, I talked about Little Things the other day, and they're wearing, I mean, I guess you could say regular clothes, but, you know, the outfits they're wearing in the Little Things video are very emblematic of the year 2000, like the red plaid pants with the chain and such. And, you know, Scott and I talked about the Chronicles video, and they're like, Joel is wearing all white and Billy has like a pinstripe coat, kind of like a Beetlejuice look. But yeah, then you go to here and they're all just wearing like t-shirts and shit, like whatever they would wear for, I think, a normal show or just a normal day.
Yeah, they just look like normal people.
Yeah, and that's, obviously it's something I talked about when I interviewed Billy, but I think it's something I've appreciated about Good Charlotte over time too, that like despite how famous they have been, they've always felt like normal people to me.
Yeah. You know what? I got that too, because we did mention that when this album was starting to come out, and everyone was just excited that they were off of hiatus, and we could see them in the news, and they are tabloid-worthy people. And they still are in the year 2020, 2 years after this album came out.
Oh, totally.
But, you never felt like far away from them, or they're not unrelatable in any way. They've kind of stuck true to the, hey, we get it. We're writing songs that are relatable. We totally get it. We're still human beings.
Yeah. And I am hoping that I can get some people on the show that have worked with them in some capacity, maybe people at labels they've been on, or publicists or managers they've worked with over the years. But everything that I have heard from people that have worked with them is just that, like, yeah, they're the nicest guys. And I believe it. Yeah.
I mean, I met them one time very super, super quickly in college.
Okay.
For like so fun fact for all you college-age kids out there that are listening to this podcast, if you're interested in the music industry, the Recording Academy has a program called Grammy U, and they teach you about university and all that fun, or not university, they teach you about the music industry and different jobs within it. And they do awesome programs where you could go to sound checks for bands.
That's so cool.
Talk to the bands and talk to the people working at the shows about what it's like to be a musician and go on tours and all that fun stuff. And it's like $60 for 6 years of
that's nothing.
Memberships. Yeah. So it's awesome. Look into it if you're very interested. Because I got to meet Good Charlotte.
Oh my God.
When they were on tour with, I believe, Youth Authority. And they were
in college when Youth Authority came out. My God. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm so old.
But they were so, so nice. And they're so willing to, answer questions and talk about the music and talk about the experience of being on tour. And it almost feels like talking to a new band. They've been doing this, and mentioned several times, they've been doing this for a very, very long time. And they've been a staple for a very, very long time.
And someone that has been through that, I think, very easily could be jaded.
Yeah. But it feels almost like they're new. And maybe it had something to do with them coming out of hiatus and starting this up again. But it never, like, while I was there and while I heard them talking to all the other attendees and answering questions, it never kind of crossed my mind like, oh my God, it's Good Charlotte. Like, it's more just like, oh, these people are cool. And
right. Oh, they probably have a lot of good things to say.
Yeah. And I really appreciate, and that's the whole band too, not just Benji and
Right, yeah.
Like, all of them have been doing this for so long, and all of them still love it, and I really appreciate that from the band.
Yeah. No, I hear what you are saying about this Grammy U thing, and I just wish I had known about something like that when I was in college, because I did not, I didn't know that I was going to do anything in music when I first went to college. So I definitely didn't know that something like that existed at my mostly engineering nerd school.
I went to a mostly engineering college too.
But you went to a school that has a good music industry program, even though they're largely a engineering type school.
Yeah. I actually didn't do music industry. I did entertainment arts management.
Oh, okay.
Music industry. But yeah, it's just great when you go to an engineering school and you don't major in engineering, but that's what people know it for. And you're like, oh, I go to Drexel. Yeah. And they're like, are you an engineer? And you have to be like, no, I like music.
Oh, you go to Case Western? Oh, so what type of engineering do you do?
Yes.
Psychology.
Yeah.
totally work in a field related to psychology now. No, I mean, I don't know. I enjoyed college and I got a good education, whether or not it's like directly related to what I do for a living now. So I know you were talking about seeing them around Youth Authority, but have you seen them since this album came out?
I haven't.
So I saw them twice on that initial tour. I went to one show to review it, and then I won tickets. So I went to the Philly show as a reviewer, and then I won tickets to the New York show. So I got to see them again like a week later, which was awesome. And then I saw them at Warped Tour in 2019, the Atlantic City Warped Tour. They were supposed to play at Starland Ballroom like the day before, 2 days before, but canceled kind of last minute. I was pretty upset. But I asked because I don't think I've ever seen them play this song live. They played it live. I looked up on setlist.fm, and apparently they played it a bunch in Europe last year, but I don't think I've ever seen them play it live, which is kind of weird because I feel like this is like a single and it's such a good representation of that album, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I must say I didn't get to see them live.
Yeah. I don't know. They haven't, I mean, obviously right now, the whole music industry, I think, is kind of
on hold.
On hold.
You brought up that they played Warped Tour. I completely forgot they were on Warped Tour 2019.
Well, they played, and I was working, and I was at the tent that I was working, and my coworker comes and she's like, Molly, go watch Good Charlotte. Because I was kind of like, I'm working, like I'm getting paid to be here. If I can see any bands, cool. But I'm doing a job, but I did get to watch them for a bit, like probably the second half of their set.
Yeah. Were they main stage Warped?
I believe so. I feel like Warped Tour, the Atlantic City Warped Tour, it was like 2 main stages and then like 2 or 3 smaller stages. It definitely was not like the 8 or 9 stages of Warped Tour many moons ago.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. Yeah, which they were on in 2016.
Yeah, the parking lot concerts. Did they play there?
Yeah, well, Atlantic City was on the beach, which is, I don't know if that's better or worse than a parking lot.
I like that.
I like the idea too, but like, you're on sand, so sand gets in every crevice of your body and your backpack and your shoes. It's like, yeah. I'm
turning this into a reminisce about Warped Tour podcast.
Yeah, right? Oh, well, yeah. There's going to be a lot of Warped Tour stories over this podcast, I'm sure. Emily, so I have a few a few questions that I want to ask before we wrap up. So, I mean, obviously this is a relatively new song, but how has this song held up to you over, the 2 years or so? I mean, especially considering that this was kind of, in a way, your reintroduction to the band.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only song that I have really kept listening to from this entire album. Mm-hmm. And I definitely have a habit of doing that with new releases and albums. I'll most likely just listen to the whole thing once all the way through and then pick one song that I really, really love. And so Shadowboxer is that one song. And it's just good. I'm one of those people, I'm like, it's good to work out too. It really gets me pumped up. It stood the test of time for me. And it's still just something like it comes on in my car and I'm like, okay, yeah, fuck yeah, let's do it. Because although we did talk about like the self-reflection aspect of it and how you getting down on yourself and how I believe it was regretful and angry, it's not a bring you down kind of song.
No, not at all. And that's actually, but before we head out, I want to mention another interview that I read about this album on Upset. They made a comparison, especially with this song, to Linkin Park, which Joel talked about as being like an intentional conscious decision. He talks about Chester passing away that really affected him because you always wish you could have said something to someone and you didn't get that chance. And he talks about how that affected the way, I guess, he interacts, and that he tries to say things to people now and not hold back. And apparently just he went back through Linkin Park's albums, and he was always a fan, but I guess after Chester passed away, he was really inspired to get some of that feeling on this record.
Yeah. And, going back to not making a decisive action or fighting with yourself.
Totally.
I could definitely see how something like that can affect a person in that way. And, the timeline also of Chester Bennington unfortunately passed away in summer of 2017. Mm-hmm. And this album came out the next year in 2018.
Yeah.
And a lot of things were coming out in honor of Chester Bennington. And
totally.
I think although it is a heavy topic, the song itself doesn't make you sad.
No, it doesn't.
And it doesn't bring you down. And it's hard to talk about. And it was a very, very sad day. And obviously a lot that comes out of stuff like that is reminiscent and sad and awful. But I kind of like that they put a theme like this in a song that isn't there to bring you down. Although the lyrics are talking about being brought down by yourself.
Right. Which I love about this song, and that I think is a reason that like this song for me has like grown for me so much, that like despite being in some ways angry, it's not like a downer type song, and it doesn't make me feel sad because I don't really see this song as like wallowing. Yeah. It's like, okay, I've been suffering with what everyone said, and all this pain, you cause your own suffering. And this song to me is like that moment where you're starting to like really question how you talk to yourself or how you've acted or not acted in the past. And that moment where you start to question things, I feel like, is the moment where you begin to make a change.
Yeah. Oh, that's a beautiful sentiment to
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, very poetic.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better than myself.
Oh, thank you so much. So, Emily, do you have any last words about Shadowboxer, about Good Charlotte, or about yourself?
Yeah, I could do all three. Shadowboxer is a great song. If you are like me and maybe hadn't visited Good Charlotte in a while, even after they came out with Generation RX, and you've been on the fence and maybe looking to do so, I highly, highly recommend Shadowboxer. Or just listen to the album in full and pick your own song. I'm sure there'll be a Generation GC podcast on it soon.
We're going to talk about everything. We are going to talk about every song on every album. We are going to get EPs and demos, and we're even going to try to track down some unreleased material.
Perfect. I'm so excited. Thank you for having me on. And thank you, Good Charlotte, for making amazing music.
Yes. Oh, Emily, thank you so much for coming on and talking about Good Charlotte with me for 45 minutes on a Wednesday night.
Easy peasy.
Right. I know. It's the kind of fun part about this is, I have spent so much of my life talking about Good Charlotte nonstop to anyone who will listen. And now people that I don't even know are going to hopefully listen to me talk about Good Charlotte nonstop for, an hour every week. Emily, thank you so, so much. Where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, you can find me at Emily Berke, Berke, on every platform because I snagged that name up real fast.
Hell yeah.
And I work at a great management company called Waldman Management in LA. And Scott Waldman was on the show prior, and he is our wonderful overarching boss. That's what you're calling him, the boss. He's really cool. And you can check out our roster and everything at waldmgmt.com or waldmgmt on all socials.
Yes, and last week's guest, we should mention, Kate from 18th and Addison, is one of the artists you manage.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Emily, for being on the show. Thank you to everyone who has tuned in. My name is Molly. I've been your host. You can follow Generation GC at Generation GC Pod on Twitter or Instagram. And you can also follow me at Hudelson at MHUDELSON on Twitter or Instagram as well. Thank you guys so much. Come back next week. We will be returning to Good Charlotte's self-titled album.